So let's say we want to do an experiment, right? And we say you're going to be given 30 days to yourself alone. You have access to everything you need, like food, water, everything in your house alone. But you're not going to use your phone and you will not have access to the internet. How many of us will sign up for this experiment? A show of hands. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So, yeah. So, for some of us, it's going to be like a dream come true because I can see many hands here. But for a large portion of the population, it's going to be like a nightmare because just imagine what it feels like to not be able to have access to the internet and you're just alone. Remember, you're the only person in the entire building. Now, I found myself in this situation during COVID 19, and many of us can relate. But maybe my own situation was different because I was stuck in school. All my friends had traveled, and before I moved, there was lockdown, so I had to stay. Now, for the first time in my entire life, I was living alone for a very long period of time. Now, because this is Nigeria, as a student, you cannot really afford to spend too much money on data. So I could not be online 247. So I was forced to start doing other things to fill up my time. And that was when I embraced the habit of sitting down to read, number one, and to think. And in that process, I realized that, there's an inner voice I have, and all my life, I've never really paid attention to it. Because I've always been surrounded by people, I've been surrounded by social media. I did not know that there was somebody in me that is a version of me that speaks. To cut the long story, at the end of COVID 19, my friends came back, and as usual, I was expecting that we would relate, we would gist, and everything. I noticed that I no longer could relate with them like before. Conversations that we had pre COVID 19 did not interest me again. I had changed to a different person. A friend of mine had to ask me, say, Paul, what happened to you? You've changed. And that was when I knew that isolation for a long period of time had changed me to a different person. So for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to be giving you four reasons why we all have to embrace isolation and not fear it. Number one, clarity in silence. The thing is, most people do not like silence. Even if you're an introvert, you might not necessarily fully like silence because it forces you to listen to your inner voice. It forces you to, come to terms with who you are, unfiltered. So a research was carried out in 2013 at the University of Virginia, and they realized that many people preferred to shock themselves with mild electricity than to sit alone with themselves for 15 minutes. You know why? Isolation creates that space. And within that space, you begin to ask yourself, who am I? What do I really want? What is life? So I have this community of young men where we discuss, we share ideas. And in one of our meetings, I asked the question, what is life? And I'm asking you too. Have you ever sat down to ask yourself, what is life? What is the essence of living? Why am I here? What am I here to do? Those are questions you cannot ask in the public. Those are questions you cannot ask when scrolling your phone. Those are questions you ask in isolation. Number two, isolation helps you to increase your self awareness and grow personally. You see, you cannot necessarily move to the next level when you are not currently aware of your current level. Because how do you know what to improve on? Most people are not aware of their current state. See, it takes self awareness for a mediocre to know that he needs improvement to become excellent. We've seen many people in history who have done several things. And when you ask them, what's the secret? They'll tell you, I isolate myself for a while and I think Bill Gates, we all know Bill Gates. There's something he does called the Think Weeks, where twice in a year he travels to a hidden place. He drops his phones, everything, goes with a bag full of books. And what he does there is to read and to think. And in one of those events, he came up with the idea of Internet Explorer. So, what are those ideas you have currently now that are in you, but you've not found it just because you've not learned to isolate yourself? The third reason why you have to take isolation serious is the fact that it fosters creativity. People say things like there's creativity in chaos, creativity thrives in chaos. But when you do your research, you discover that some of the most creative people we know on earth, they love to be alone. How many of us have watched Harry Potter? You've watched the movie. Do you know that the writer of that movie called J.K. Rowling's, she was delayed on her train for a long period of time. She didn't have access to the internet at that time. There was no laptop and the rest. And that was how she was able to think and develop the entire Harry Potter universe. So I ask you again, what are those ideas you have that you are even yet to find just because there's so much noise? Our world tells you to constantly work on yourself, improve yourself, do this, do that, do not be lazy. But what if sometimes slowing down, stopping everything, dropping everything, going to a place to actually find yourself is what will move you to the next level, not doing more? What if? Number four, isolation helps you to reset. Do you know that you can be doing stuff to the point whereby you are so busy and you even forget the reason why you were doing it in the first place? Many of us started businesses, we started initiatives, we were so busy, doing the business. At some point, we forgot why we were doing it. But when you isolate yourself, you reset, you ask yourself, oh, why am I doing this? Oh, I can remember, all right, I'm going to continue. Or I can change trajectory. So I ask you again, what are those ideas you have that are yet to manifest just because you have not embraced the habit of isolation? Now, I've been talking about isolation, and most people think that, oh, you have to travel to another place, you have to take weeks off. No, you could start with something called micro isolation, whereby you wake up every day or you schedule a time in your day to spend maybe 30 minutes without your phone, without distraction, just thinking. You could try walking for a long period of time without your phone again. Maybe it could be like a 1 hour walk without your phone every week. And the goal behind that walking is to think. Some people do something called like a monthly retreat, where you spend an entire day in a month without your phone, without distraction, just you and yourself. If you can embrace, the habit of isolating yourself, you discover a dimension of you that nobody knows. There's this popular theory in psychology called the Johari window that talks about the four dimensions of self. Number one, we have something called the open self. Those are dimensions of you people know and you know. So, like me, I'm tall now. I know I'm tall. You know I'm tall. That's my open self. I'm shy. I know I'm shy. Maybe you know I'm shy. That's my open self. The second dimension of self is called the facade. Those are areas in my life I know, but nobody in the surface of this earth knows it. There are things I do now that some people, nobody can know. It's called the facade. And number three is called the blind spot. And those are things you do that people can see, but you do not know that you are doing them. There are things you currently do that only your friends and your family members can know. You cannot know it until they tell you. And number four is called the unknown self. This is a dimension of you nobody knows, including yourself. One way to find this is in the place of isolation. Because when you are isolated, you begin to dig deep. You begin to think. How many of us will agree with me that sometimes when you're having your shower, ideas start rolling? Because that's the only time your brain has to create. You see, most times our brain is in the state of reaction. It keeps reacting to notifications, to messages, to several impulses. But when you are silent, your brain has the opportunity to move from reacting to creating. At the end of COVID 19, I was able to start a business from my hostel apartment as a final year student that reached over 30 countries and thousands of people. This was something I would never have imagined that I would be able to do before COVID 19. It was my experience during isolation that unlocked that version of me. There's a version of you that can never be unlocked until you learn to isolate yourself. As I round off, there's a story in this book called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz, where they had two business owners in the same street. One of them, every morning when he wakes up, he sits down and he asks himself, how can I be more? How can I do more? Then ideas come to him, he writes them down, he finds the one he could implement, and he goes to do them during the day. Then his counterpart wakes up every morning, I beg your pardon, to hustle. A few months down the line, the first man had scaled his business, reaching more people, having more branches, and his counterpart was still hustling. Now, one would think that because he was hustling, he should have more results. But the person who actually sat down to ask himself two questions: how can I be more? How can I do more? Got more results. So I want to ask you, listening to me, how can you be more? And how can you do more?